What's up, Boilers fans? We got a special show tonight. Caleb Furst joining Boilers in the Stands. We're going to get into it all starting right now. Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands with a little special show as we get ready for Purdue versus IU at Mackey Arena tomorrow night. Joining the show for the first time here on Boilers in the Stands, special guest Caleb Furst. Welcome to the program. Appreciate you carving out some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it, man. We were talking a little backstage about some music interests and things like that. So we'll certainly get into some of the fun stuff later on. But just, when you watch that video and you rewind back to, your journey here with the Purdue men's basketball program and it leading all the way to, a Final Four appearance and getting to a national championship, for you, how much sense of pride do you have knowing that you are a part of the golden era of Purdue men's basketball and helping build something that's going to last for generations, truly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, a ton of pride. I think, any kid's dream being recruited in high school, coming out of high school, you want to play for a good program and obviously you want to be successful, like personally, but, for me, something that was very important to me was having team success and, to just be able to be a part of that. And to have that, especially last year, making it to the national championship and everything, it's certainly something that, I think I can say I bear with pride, and so do all my teammates as well.
Absolutely.
And you kind of mentioned it, Caleb, but going back to you in your senior year of high school, you win Indiana Mr. Basketball, you win a state championship. I guess what was it about Purdue's basketball program that sold you to come here to West Lafayette?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, it was definitely I got to think a little bit because it feels like it's so long ago. It's definitely the winning culture, and then just the culture of the guys as well. I think Purdue more so than any other school that I visited, like just being with the guys and being with the team and everything, it felt like a true community. So that was something that was important to me. And then just kind of going back to what I said earlier, kind of the winning history, especially within the past 10, 15 years, and all the Big Ten championships that they've won before I've got there, and the two that we've been able to win since I've been here. That definitely had a big part to do with it as well. And then obviously Coach Painter, I would say that, he's probably the best coach in the country, in my opinion. I know you can obviously argue that with a lot of different guys, but, I feel like he's just such a basketball maestro is the best way to put it. And how I look at it, like who wouldn't want to play for a guy like that?
No question about it. It's interesting you say that, basketball maestro, because we were calling Braden Smith the maestro the other night, every night, really. I mean, watching him play, he's certainly a basketball savant, but knowing how extensive the Matt Painter playbook is and how many different sets you guys run. And I know our guy Joe here certainly gets into a lot of that here on the show and really teaches us the game on another level. So you're 100% right. You got a few maestros running around Mackey Arena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit. I think I saw something. Someone told me it was before. It was the 2 or 3 games leading up. I assume it was probably 3 before we played Texas A&M. I saw something or heard something. I don't know where it was at. We won, or not won. We ran 77 different sets, like in the 3 games leading up to them. Which was a little crazy even think about for me. Obviously, we're running them all. But I don't think being out there, a lot of times we don't think about like the sheer quantity of the sets that we run. Obviously, we know we run a lot, probably close to the most in the country compared to other people. But just hearing a number like that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I think a question I feel like we ask basically everybody that comes on at this point, talking about how many sets you have and things like that. It's like, how hard was it, especially as a freshman? Like, and just how difficult was it to one, get up to speed, and kind of how daunting of a task was it to do that?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, especially your first summer. But they do. I mean, they do such a great job of like pounding it into our minds. Of we call it like the vocab. So we actually have like in the preseason, in the fall, and in the summer leading up to the season, we'll have vocab quizzes over kind of all our terms. So it'll be a sheet with probably anywhere between 50 and 100 terms, both offensively and defensively. And we'll just get quizzed on it, and we'll have to, write down what it means, or they'll give us the definition. We have to write down like the specific word. But it's definitely tough. I think once you get kind of the vocab down, though, it gets a lot easier. Like, for example, now whenever you see Butler on kind of our whiteboard, like, what Butler is. And even like in the middle of the play, if you're lost, at some point there's a Butler, and, we kind of get into the Butler maybe 3 or 4 different ways, but at the end of the day, it's still the same action. And you can kind of fake it till you make it a little bit, until you actually get to the meat of the action.
How does Painter try to trick you up and catch you that you're faking it till you make it when you get in the film room? Like, I have to imagine he tries to throw you guys some questions to see how up to speed you are.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly, that's what the quizzes are for. Because a lot of times, you can memorize, like we'll go over maybe 20 sets here, and you memorize like what those sets are because you just memorize the whole entire term. Or the whole entire play call, but then you get into the quizzes and you don't know the individual words. Like, he can kind of tell who's faking it and not based on your quiz score. If you got an A or if you got maybe a C or an F.
How much of an adjustment has it been for you? You come in. I can remember you hitting a big time 3 in Connecticut. In the tournament where you guys took down Villanova, right? Yeah, North Carolina and then Villanova. You had a big time 3 in the corner, and your role was a certain way when you first kind of came on the scene, started to really assert yourself. Then Zach Edey becomes what I don't think any of us could have anticipated. So your role kind of changes in that moment. Now you're here and you're the leader of this team, the guy that's been there and done that. So for you, when you talk about being prepared, getting these quizzes right, knowing where you're supposed to be, and running these sets the way they want, how much of an adjustment has it been for you to make those adjustments while your role has changed throughout?
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit of an adjustment, kind of going back to what I said earlier. Obviously, when talking about, when you think of kind of schools that you want to go to when you're being recruited, one of the things I mentioned, obviously you want to play. So that was definitely a little bit of a change, but kind of the way I looked at it was, like you mentioned, no one knew Zach Edey was going to be Zach Edey. But no matter what, at the end of the day, my focus was always, kind of the team, and the team success as a whole is more important than any individual success that I may have, or Braden may have, or Zach may have, or Trey, or whoever. Choose anyone in there, put any name in there. So that was, that's kind of always been my focus throughout my entire 4 years. And, going from, starting whatever it was, half the games my sophomore year to not playing as much. I think it was only around 10 or so minutes last year. Obviously that's not fun. That's not like what me personally I want. But at the end of the day, I think it just goes back to, having that mindset and having that focus that the team's most important. And because of that, and because we had guys that would buy in and that would do that kind of from 1 through 15, last year we were able to make it to that national championship.
100%.
What type of mindset? We really haven't had a chance to interview players since the national championship game last year, and going from a season where the season before kind of ends in about the worst way it can, right? In a 16 versus a 1, and what type of mindset and focus did it take in your guys' locker room, or how did you approach it to be able to come back and then go all the way to the national title game the next year?
Yeah, I would say it was probably just having a focus that the people that we had in the locker room were the most important. Obviously, you hear a lot of stuff, you see a lot of stuff after losing a game like that the previous year, and then you hear a lot of stuff and see a lot of stuff, kind of throughout the whole season about what happened last year, and is it going to happen again? All these things. But at the end of the day, I think our focus was just always taking it one practice and one day at a time. When we're in the middle of the Big Ten season, obviously you wish you could change what happened in the NCAA tournament last year. But, our focus was we got to win the Big Ten first. And then we'll worry about the tournament. And when the tournament comes, we'll worry about the first game, and then we'll worry about the second game, and so on and so on, rather than jumping too far ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. For the past, I don't know, 2 years, I guess, right? Edey played or was National Player of the Year for 2 years. And for those 2 years, I kind of had a working theory of like, I think the hardest job maybe in all of college basketball was to be his backup. And right, that was a lot of your role last year. What, like, obviously, aside from, right, Edey's going to play as many minutes as he could. And so you don't know specifically night to night how many minutes you're getting. But, like, could you tell a difference when you came on the floor just in terms of, like, either, like, opponents' attitudes? Not that they're necessarily happy to see you, but, like, just kind of glad to see Zach Edey's gone? Or did you just notice anything different maybe than, like, any other time you kind of came off the bench?
Yeah, I mean, they probably were happy to see me, honestly. I'd be happy to see anyone other than Zach, too. No, I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of times, when I would check in, if their starting big hadn't checked out yet, they were checking him out pretty soon, giving him a breather as well. That's a good question, though. I can't really think of anything other than that. I did notice that a lot. But other than that, I can't think of, like, any, like, specific examples right off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was, yeah, it's a tall task to even have to handle Zach Edey in practice than to, try to, back him up last year. And you're seeing this year with a lot of players in the NBA, they're finding out just how hard it is to handle Zach Edey. I found that clip the other day pretty funny where the guy tried to come down the floor and shoulder check him, and Zach didn't move an inch. So they're going to find out the hard way. I'm curious about the start of this season, Caleb. When you come into a year, we hear all these stories, and Craig's able to go to some of the practices during the off season of how you guys are kind of competing against each other to figure out what your roles will be to start the year. Excuse me. And, we also understand there's kind of a process in November of you guys and Matt Painter figuring out what his rotations are going to be. You, obviously being, where you're at in your career, I'm sure you had it in your mind, like, hey, I want to take control of my opportunity now that I have it clear and precise. And it took a minute to facilitate. So I'm curious, and Scott White was asking in the chat too, like, your mindset going into the year, trying to figure out what your role is. And now all of a sudden where 2025 starts, you're inserted into the starting lineup. And it just felt like it was this burst of energy for not just you, but the entire team.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Kind of how I mentioned, last year, I think I only played, I don't know exactly what my average was. I think it was around 10 minutes per game. And Coach Paint, talks about it a lot. It's hard to be really efficient or really successful in limited minutes. So I think that, that was definitely something that, I didn't want to see continue, obviously. And it was something that, I struggled with a bit because obviously I didn't, obviously playing behind Zach, that's hard enough. But I feel like I didn't necessarily feel like I played even in my minutes as well as I was able to. So for me, I think the biggest thing was just, trying to play with confidence, trying to play with joy, and just going back to what I said, just doing what I can, whatever my role is, to help the team win as best as I can. And, I think it was definitely an adjustment and something that, I kind of had to really work on to fix my mindset in that way, and kind of fix my confidence in that way a little bit, if that makes sense. But,
yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a change for sure.
And real quick to follow up on that, just with the Ohio State game, I'm curious because you had that great run to start 2025, and it felt like, okay, everything's falling into place, and Ohio State kind of trips all of you guys up. And I know that you probably wanted a better game than you had that night. So was that somewhat of like a wake-up call or a reset of where you guys are emotionally and momentum-wise to understand, like, hey, we're in the Big Ten fight now, and we can't get caught slipping because – you guys, I know you know better than anybody that it can happen to anybody on any given night in the Big Ten.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had gone, what was it? Three of the last four on the road. And, obviously we had that stretch out in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to get both of those, which was big for us. And I think a lot of times coming back home, especially to an arena like Mackey, you can fall into the thinking of, oh yeah, we're back home. Like we got this. When in reality, like you mentioned in the Big Ten, that's not the case. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night. So you always got to be prepared to take someone's best shot and then to give them your best shot. So I think it was definitely, I don't want to say good for us, because obviously it's never good to lose, but I think it was definitely something that, we tried to use heading into Michigan as, motivation, which we were able to do. And, obviously want to keep that rolling.
Yeah, it was good. It wasn't good for you guys, but it was definitely bad for Michigan because, man, they got hit by a tidal wave last week. Go ahead, Craig.
And now, Caleb, now that you've been inserted back into the starting lineup and CJ joined you at the same time as you went in there, Purdue's, well, first of all, you are averaging over that span what would be career best statistically since you've been at Purdue over that 8-game span. So congrats on that. But one huge thing we've seen just from a team aspect is obviously defensively. Greg's moving us all around here. Defensively, the team made a big jump. And obviously there was going to be a different identity to this team's defense without the 7'4", 290, 300-pounder anchor in the middle. But, you guys were as low as the mid-70s in Ken Palm defensive efficiency, have jumped all the way up into like 21, 22 range. You're averaging almost 1.4 steals per game over that time period, but also just it seems like the entire energy of the team's defense has changed in this last 8 or 9 games. I guess, what have you seen in terms of the emergence of your guys' identity defensively, and how did you get there?
Yeah, I think we realized just that when you have losing someone like Zach, obviously he was such a presence at the rim, could block so many shots. And even if he didn't block them, he would just alter them, have the guy have to try to finish some other way. And a lot of times he would end up missing. And so I think losing that, it was definitely a bit of an adjustment in the fact that we don't have that anymore. But there are some other things that we have in our advantage now that we didn't necessarily have with Zach, just with him being bigger. Him obviously not being as quick. It's hard to move 7'4", 300 pounds. So I think something that we've tried to do a lot, especially with Trey and I, and it's taken some time, and it's something that we're continually working on, but just always putting pressure on their bigs. A lot of teams run 5 out. They have the 5-man facilitate it, kind of dribble downs going into Butlers, like I mentioned earlier, going into those dribble handoffs. And we feel like we can really pressure those guys. And, instead of normally they want to get down, get into that dribble handoff at the elbow or, kind of the short corner area, whatever it may be. If we're pressuring them, we can push it out to the wing. Then it's a lot harder for that, for the offensive guard to get downhill. It's a lot easier for our guard to guard it. And then just kind of switch in 4 ways, and then every once in a while, even 5 ways sometimes. That's something that we kind of went away from the past year, maybe 2 years. I can't remember exactly. I think my freshman year, we were still switching 4 ways. Since then, though, I don't think we've done it. So just kind of going back to that, and then switching 5-ways every once in a while, more so emergency type switches, but which is something that, since I've been here, we've never done, just because, we always had Travion or Zach at the 5 pretty much. So I think it definitely took a little bit of an adjustment, but it was more so looking at, what do we no longer have, but what do we have now that we haven't in the past, if that makes sense. And then, Braden helps us so much too, with just the way that he gets in passing lanes, the way that he's quick to the ball. And then CJ, obviously, he, jams the ball handler every time bringing it up. He puts a lot of on-ball pressure. He's good getting in the passing lanes. He's a great on-ball defender, and has, done a great job of guarding guys that he's given up a few inches to. Same with Jakari. Just all the guys.
Yeah, fair. And just to add on to that, since you've been put in the starting lineup, especially, right? You've been tasked with guarding just different types of players. You were on Ace Bailey. You've been on Danny Wolf. You've been switched on to Golden. Like, you've been switched on to or tasked with guarding all these guys. I think maybe even Martinelli in the Northwestern game.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to your sophomore year, and I think a lot of people will reference that PK85 run is like, especially that Duke game, is you kind of, with what you were able to do defensively against Filipowski and in the high hedge, like just kind of not single-handedly winning that game, but being a very big part of that. And even in high school, was that kind of part of your identity, is just this versatile defender that can, that obviously you're 6'11" or whatever, and be big, but still be out on the perimeter? Is that something you really kind of had to develop while you're at Purdue?
Probably more so at Purdue. I'm trying to think. And honestly, in high school, it was more so, just sitting a 2-3, I'll be in the middle. Or if we are guarding a man-to-man, I'll just guard the dude that can't shoot and sit in the middle and block shots at the rim, which was nice, but I think this is a little bit more fun. But no, it's definitely something. I think, I'd say I've probably been capable of it. For me, it was more so not necessarily a physical thing of getting to, be able to guard these guys, but more so a mental thing, kind of being more used to guarding out on the perimeter, being used to being in those gaps, to switching those ball screens, to, not being the guy guarding the pick and roll that's guarding the picker, but, being able to guard the ball handler in the pick and roll. So I'd say for me more so is definitely since I got to Purdue, but it was mostly mental, and just getting those mental reps and getting more used to it.
Yeah. I want to jump into some of the starred comments that some of our listeners have put forward, because there's some more personal type questions that we want to pull up here. One of which is from Thoroughgood, gives us a $10 super chat here. Thank you. What is your ideal involvement with Purdue when you're 55 years old and have been away from this program? How do you want to be involved once you leave? And then he says, thanks so much for all your years. You are a true Boilermaker. All hail.
That's a good question. I would say, hopefully not coaching. No offense to people that are coaching, but that is not like the job for me. But no, I definitely always want to get back to games. Being here for 4 years, being able to graduate from here, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. I take a lot of pride, not just in the basketball, but the university as a whole. So, I definitely want to, stay around, or not stay around, but come back to campus every once in a while. Definitely come to games. That's definitely something that's important to me.
Yeah, and when you are
55,
when you are 55 years old, then you'll start getting into Brothers Osborne a little more, right?
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, we were talking about country music bands before the show, and I asked him. He was mentioning some ones he listens to. And I asked him about Brothers Osborne, and he said it's for old people. And that was a direct shot across the bow, right at me, right through my heart. But that's okay.
I think it was more so. That's something that my parents would be into rather than me.
It's not cleaning it up. You're not cleaning it up. But
and the funny thing, Greg, is the oldest guy on the show is the one that listens to the same music as Caleb. So, take that for what it's worth. But I am surrounded by college students all the time as a professor, and my daughter being in college right now. So, hey, Caleb, you know, we know you're looking at applying to medical school, or maybe already have. Somebody asked what type of doctor you're hoping to end up being, or what led you to that career choice, and I guess kind of where are you at in that whole process now?
Yeah. So I've applied in everything. I've been accepted to IU's medical school, and then I have an interview with Ohio State's medical school in 2 weeks now coming up. So I'm actually almost through the process. I guess technically I could be completely through the process. But what was the other part? What type of doctor?
What type of doctor?
Some type of surgeon, definitely. I've shadowed mostly like orthopedic surgeons, just because that's what I've been around playing sports. Obviously, you hear about orthopedic type surgeries. I've had a couple myself. So that's what I've shadowed mostly, and it's definitely something that interests me. I don't know. I'm not like dead set on that though. I couldn't tell you like, 100% I want to be this or this, but definitely some type of surgery I'm leaning towards. And then when it comes to choosing that career choice, for me, it's just I would say I have a passion for serving people, and I think, being a physician, being a doctor, it's a very direct way that you can serve people through your work, and that's just something that I'm really passionate about.
That's admirable, because I can only imagine just how hard that is. As we've told many times, for people that watch this show, they know that my connection to the program is Sasha Stefanovic. And so I'd hit him up after games like, oh, hey, get some sleep, man. Great game. And he's like, well, no, I got to go do homework. I'm not going to get sleep. And it's so I can only imagine, and that always kind of put it in perspective, just how hard you guys have to work for this. And I can only imagine how challenging it is to be a doctor and a basketball player at the same time.
And Caleb's been all Big Ten academic team the last 2 years too, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think you'd have to.
It was in Foreman's notes. So
it was okay. Then I'll take Foreman's word for it, unless he messed up.
We had a related question to this. We had a star from Boilermaker 92 said, could you give a sense of like how many hours you spend on basketball and then how many hours on academics? How do you kind of keep up with it with all the travel?
Yeah. Nowadays, I could technically graduate now. Like I could have graduated back in December, but I had to stay eligible. And I wasn't gonna, like, obviously I'm not going to start like a master's program or anything or a postgrad here at Purdue. So I'm just in one online class right now this semester. So not many. I think I did my homework for the week this morning, and it took me 15 minutes.
Nice.
So about 15 minutes a week so far. And then last semester was pretty similar. Last semester wasn't bad, but last year was probably the worst academically wise, just because I was balancing. It was like my hardest year of classes, and then the second semester I was studying for the MCAT as well. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you the exact amount. I think I tried to study like around 20 hours a week for the MCAT, plus however much it would have been for school. And then basketball, it kind of depends. I would say, honestly, anywhere from 30 to 40 hours probably. That's not, if you include travel time and all that other stuff, it's probably a lot more. I couldn't give you an exact answer, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty incredible, man, and admirable. But you know what? That's the Boiler way, right? You guys, have set an example for, everybody that comes into this program, and you've talked about how it, trickled down to your mentality going into this, and I know that's going to carry over for everybody that's following in your footsteps as well. I know that, Jeff Parks asked when we're talking about just learning things, he says, what was harder to learn, all the bones in a skeletal system or Matt Painter's playbook?
Well, I don't quite know all the bones in the skeletal system. I don't think I did the best job of learning that during my class. So I'm probably going to have to relearn that.
Okay.
So since I can't choose that, I would probably go Payne's playbook for sure.
Painter's playbook.
That's probably not a good answer on my half. I should probably say like thing, but I figured I got a couple more years before I really got to know it like for real. So
Yeah.
I more so just
What?
learned it enough to make sure I got a good grade on the exam.
Well, you knew this was going to come up at some point tonight, Caleb. The elf advertisements and everything for Purdue have been so popular. You guys have raised, I think, over 50,000 meals for people through that campaign, which is incredible. But how did that come about? Did somebody come to you with the idea? Were they just looking for volunteers, or how did this happen?
Yeah, I think so. I know before I got there, and then my freshman year, they would always do like a poster for the food drive, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I think so. Yeah. So Foreman came to me with the idea of doing like an elf poster, just because they would always joke with me that that I look and like act like Will Ferrell and stuff like that. A lot like my freshman year. So he came to me with the idea my freshman year about doing it like my sophomore year. And then I can't tell you exactly how, but then the creative team got a hold of it. And they were like, well, let's do some videos as well. I think they were probably inspired by the Keeping It Loose, Tommy Loose videos. So they got a hold of that. And then Andrew Bay was kind of the main guy in charge of it. He's like our team videographer. And he does a great job. So he was the director, the producer, the writer, kind of all in one. So he made it real easy on me, and just kind of told me what to do. So I just had to get in character a little bit. And let it rip,
Well, I actually was able. I dressed up. I was looking for it. I thought it was in my laundry room, which is right across the hall from me. I was able to dress up as the elf for my 6-year-old daughter, and for our Christmas Eve party, and they got a big kick out of it. I didn't play it as well as you have. I mean, you're a pro at this point.
I think you're being modest.
I did eat the spaghetti though, with the chocolate and the mushroom, or not the mushrooms, the marshmallows,
Jesus,
and everything else, the syrup. Yeah, no mushrooms. But yeah, great job on that. Certainly warmed the spirits for everyone during the Christmas season. A lot of people point out here on the show when we talk about the look of the elf, and the look of nailing it with that. Another thing people bring up on our show is how much our co-host here, Joe, looks like you. Now you got the beard, Caleb, but people think that you guys are related. So can you confirm or deny? Joe's trying to grow out the beard like you, but we need to find out, get to the bottom of this, and find out if you guys were separated at birth. Because I think maybe there's a chance that maybe you guys are related.
Joe, does your beard grow in red like mine?
Yeah.
It does?
I got yeah.
Okay, so there might be a chance, maybe second or third cousins or something like that.
You never know. I think
what were you gonna say?
I'm a couple years removed from college, but a couple years ago when I was in college, I think there was more truth to what people were saying, but I don't know about it as much anymore.
I was gonna say I always got, when I was younger, like the YouTuber, I don't know if he's around anymore. He was big when I was younger, like Lachlan.
Yeah,
the YouTuber. I always got told I looked like him. Did you as well?
Yeah, I got him. Yeah. The other one I got was Prince Harry a lot.
Oh, see, I never got that.
Okay, well, there you go.
Rolling things along here on Boilers and the Fans with Caleb Furst, having a little fun with them. Won't take up too much more of your time, Caleb, and we appreciate you jumping on. We know you got a big game tomorrow night with the Indiana Hoosiers at Mackey Arena. Casey Bartley, you may know him, Caleb. Someone does a great job covering. Yes, Casey is a great dude and a big supporter of what we do here. So he's throwing a question here in the chat. It says, does Caleb have a good Lance Jones story? Media days are much quieter without him.
Dang, he's put me on the spot. Not a specific one. I know he was just always in the training room. Him and Chad were best buddies back in the day. Not back in the day, I guess it was last year. But him and Chad were always together, and they always had like their little shenanigans going on. So they would get in their little fights and stuff a lot. I'd have to take some time to think of like a real specific story. I know there are a lot of them. But I'd have to think.
Yeah, no, 100%. Putting you on the spot here on Boilers in the Stands. Do you guys have anything here? A couple more here, and then we'll let Caleb get back to studying up.
I just had some rapid fire, so super quick answers to these 4 questions. Okay, give me the name of one band that you found recently that you're into.
I guess I got to be rapid fire. Creed. I like a couple Creed songs.
Creed.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, Brothers Osborne's for the parents, but Creed for the young.
I was gonna say like the Goo Goo Dolls or something too.
There you go.
I got you.
They got a couple decent songs.
Summer hits of the 90s on Pandora, man. You'll never miss.
Where's your go-to spot to eat restaurant-wise in West Lafayette or Lafayette?
I'm more of a coffee guy, so can I give coffee? Okay.
Yeah.
My 2 probably go-to spots are Revier, and then the 11th House.
Okay.
They're on the same street, like that main street with the courthouse and everything. So I'll go there, get a little breakfast sandwich, drink a little latte for a couple hours each morning, usually nowadays with my heavy class load.
Yeah.
So that's probably a go-to coffee spot.
All right. Jordan or LeBron?
LeBron.
All right. That'll wrap things up with Caleb. We will see you later. Good Lord, man. Every player we bring on here. What is wrong with you people?
That was my quickest answer yet. He's been dominant for so long. Jordan did it for 13 years. LeBron's done it for, was it 22 now?
How old are you, Caleb?
22. So he's
literally never been alive for LeBron to not be dominant.
Because
I don't have an NBA memory without LeBron being dominant.
Exactly. Same here.
I'm not gonna shame you for this. Okay. You're welcome to that opinion. I'm gonna just pity you because you didn't get to see Michael Jordan play. Right. I got to see both. I know this is rapid fire, but you got to bust that out, Brett, and it pisses me off. And now I'm triggered.
I got a chance for you to save yourself with Braggs right here. I only got one more rapid fire question. I don't know if you watch the NFL or not, but if you do, Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. Now you give the right answer here, you can save yourself with Braggs.
Why are you doing this to me?
Okay. So I do not watch the NFL whatsoever. I don't really watch.
All right. Then we don't need to answer it. Then.
But I would go Caleb Williams.
There you go. That's better. That makes.
I figured he was a Bears guy.
I'm a Bears. I'm a tortured Bears guy. I cover the Chicago Bears in Chicago, and there's nothing that gives me greater joy than to drive to Mackey Arena and cover a team as enjoyable as you guys with a coach that's great, a team, and a culture and a fan base. There's truly no. It's like walking into the pearly gates. Every time I walk up to Mackey, I'm getting to cover you. It's a pleasure to cover you guys every year. And then I look back across state lines as I'm covering the Bears, and it's like looking into the depths of hell because I know what my day is gonna feel like every time. So that is.
You guys have a new stadium soon. That'll be nice.
Yeah, I'd slow down there with the Illinois politics. I'm sure that won't come for another 10 years. We're just looking for a playoff win at this point. For me, I just was, Walter Evans was asking in the chat, what's one of your favorite arenas that you've been in 4 years? You can pick one nationally or just from the Big Ten, whatever.
I'll give one of both. Big Ten wise, if I can't say Mackey, I'm a big fan of. I guess it's called Jersey Mike's now, but the Rack. And then the Breslin Center's cool as well. I think those are just 2 great atmospheres that you can't really beat. Nationally, though, I really like the Bucks Arena. So we played there. Fiserv, we played there my freshman year in the first and second round.
Yep.
And I played Marquette there this year. And then you can't really beat the Cardinals Stadium.
You liked it? You liked it?
I think it's just, I wouldn't want to do it every day. But I feel like how often do you get to play basketball in front of 70,000 fans? So I thought that part was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely just visually, it's amazing. But I felt like the sound of the game, at least from a spectator standpoint, it sounded so much different than how you normally play all year. Like
Yeah.
how much of that was an effect for you guys? Not just the backdrop of shooting, but like the just the way you'd hear the game.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. Honestly, when there were people there, it helped it quite a bit because like when we would do our shoot arounds, not so much the open shoot around, but we had like a closed shoot around, closed practice. You could hear birds chirping inside the arena and like see them flying around up in the rafters.
Wow.
So that was a little weird, but like I said, like I definitely wouldn't want to play there all the time, but to be able to do that was a pretty cool experience.
100%.
Fair.
And yeah, and then Derek Mulligan, who's been in our chat here, and we appreciate you, Derek. He wants to know what's the funniest painterism that you've heard, if you have one that comes by. He's got many.
Oh yeah, he does have a lot. I don't think I can say any that are I don't think he has any that are family friendly. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I saw an MTV like old school. Someone sent it in like our group chat today of paint when he was at Southern Illinois, I believe, as an assistant, and he was coaching him up, and he was yelling at one guy to just elbow his teammate in the throat. So I thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty great. He's like, just hit him right in the throat. But I'm not sure. I don't think I have any that I can share in good conscience for any family friendly people.
Joe, you got anything left here for Caleb?
The only one is, so Braden Smith, I would assume you would say is the best passer in the country. In the national landscape, he's one of the best. Was there a pass early on that he made, like with your time with him, where you're just like, oh, this dude's different?
Yeah, I mean, for him, to me, I think the most impressive thing is a lot of point guards, they can do that running hook pass kind of over the head with their strong hand. But he's really good at doing it with his left hand too. So that's crazy to me. Because I think about even me like trying to do it with my left hand, like it probably wouldn't turn out great. So that's the main thing. But just the way he can play, getting in, like kind of getting in the paint, and he'll go up with that shot fake and just whip it at dudes with that little bounce pass that he likes to get to a lot. That's always crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he gave it from his left hand on the alley-oop here last week.
I don't remember, yeah.
Man, that was awesome. I had just gotten down floor level just to start getting ready for halftime, and it's a lot of fun, man. I mean, like I said, the evolution of your guys' program to go from Carson Edwards, then Jaden Ivey, as like the guys that are the superstars, and like what you guys have built off around that, and then obviously Zach Edey, being one of the greatest players in college basketball history. And each time it's almost a running gag where rival fan bases are like, all right, that's it for you guys. And now you've rolled over into what is now going to be the Braden Smith era here for the next couple of years, as somebody that's just like, just an unbelievable force of nature, and somebody that, it's like, it's watching you guys play, honestly, the last few years, and all the sets, you said 77 different sets, in a 3-game stretch. For me, and I said this on our post-game show on Friday, that is basketball poetry. If I was not a fan of Purdue basketball, I would gravitate towards wanting to watch you guys play the same way. I'm not a Golden State fan, but in the heyday of the height of their powers, watching that kind of, like, for anyone that really enjoys the game of basketball, to watch that kind of symmetry that you guys have is something special. So to watch all you guys kind of mold together, blend together, and grow and turn into what it has here in January, certainly a sight to behold, and something as Purdue basketball fans ourselves, we're all very lucky to have. So I know everybody here in the chat appreciates your time here tonight, as do we. I guess my final thoughts are, our question I have to you is just your impact from your family. I have had an opportunity to bug your dad a few times walking through the stands. We've talked a little ball a few times, and now you play with your brother, and obviously you guys have a rich family history of sports in your background. So I'm just curious about, the impact your family's had on you and your parents to help you get to the spot that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I would say massive. I think, just all the sacrifices that they made, especially when I was younger, driving me to tournaments, taking me pretty much every weekend. I don't think I realized it when I was younger just because I was used to doing it. But, I think about, in the future, I'm going to be like, when I have the weekends off, the last thing I'm going to want to do is go drive around, but they did that. And obviously, that's what people do for their children. So just the sacrifices that they made stick out so much. And, it just makes me so thankful to have them.
Muted.
Yeah, I know I'm muted. So like I said, and then somebody in the chat was asking about, playing with your brother and what that's been like for you.
Yeah. It's awesome. We had 2 years together, I believe, in high school. Yeah, it'd be 2 years that we played together. And then for pretty much everybody, that's it. You're kind of done. But for us to be able to, spend time together on the court, spend time together in practice, spend time together in the weight room. It's definitely something that's pretty special that, I feel thankful to be able to have, because like I mentioned, not many people have it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we appreciate your time here today on the show. Maybe sometime down the road, we'll bring you back on and reassess things. But for now, best of luck tomorrow night. Obviously going to, back to Mackey Arena to take on IU. We'll all be there and excited for you guys to keep this train rolling. So we appreciate you joining the show and taking up as much time as you did here tonight. It means a lot to all of us, and I know everybody that tuned in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. Whenever you guys have time for me to come back on, I would love to again. So,
hey, we typically try not to bug you guys, as we know you guys are in the heat of the battle. But now that you are officially stopped by, now that gives us clearance to bug you whenever we want. And I'm waiting for you between the LeBron stuff and then the Brothers Osborne shots. Like, I'll be waiting for you.
You took a couple shots tonight.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So tomorrow I'm showing up early and I'll meet you in the tunnel and we'll settle this, even though you're much bigger than me. So we'll catch you tomorrow. Thanks again for the time.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Caleb Furst, leader here on your Purdue men's basketball. So excited for tomorrow night. Purdue takes on the Indiana Hoosiers, who are reeling at this current moment. This is obviously every year, how much Indiana gets up for this game. So I'm curious, as we try to transition, and we won't take up too much time for the rest of the night. Obviously tomorrow's going to be a big day, but Craig, I'll start with you, and Joe, you can take this question as well. Your nervous-o-meter that that IU is going to play their Super Bowl tomorrow.
-5. I'm not even the slightest bit nervous about this game tomorrow.
I'll go with 3, just because rivalry games are just different, and they things can just get thrown out the window, and Purdue is the better team, but it's just different in rivalry games, and I don't think the past matters quite as much. So I'm not worried, but I'll go with a 3, just naturally from being a rivalry game.
I agree with you, but man, this rivalry game used to have a bunch of Indiana dudes on both teams that grew up with that rivalry, and Purdue has a bunch of Indiana dudes. IU has Luke Goody. Is anybody else on that roster?
Trey Galloway.
Any roster? Okay, Trey Galloway, Luke Goody. So to me, you have 2 guys that were born into it, raised in it, all that sort of stuff, that are actually getting playing time, that are going to matter, right? But I don't know. Those old games, it was a whole bunch of dudes from both sides.
It's interesting that you frame it that way, talking about when the rivalry means more, when there's more, Indiana high school based players on each team. I didn't really think about it in that regard, because I was thinking about, going into the game tomorrow night. And, I can remember a few times a couple years ago when Purdue was waxing IU. And I said on one of our post-game shows, much to the chagrin of people tuned in, but I was like, man, this is not fun. We're beating them by 20 every game. And when you go to a few games where it's tight at the end and Purdue wins, like those are great. Like those are the best games to be at because your heart's pumping out of your chest and Purdue wins. And when they're up by 20, the last 10 minutes of the game, it kind of, that vibe, just slowly tapers off as you hit the buzzer. It's kind of anticlimactic. And so to your point about this, like I was going into tomorrow, like, man, if they wax this team, like I'm kind of back at this point, like, how big is this rivalry game? Like it from 6 years ago, it used to feel so much bigger. And now IU really isn't holding up their end of the bargain, so much so that their fans, they're not mad at Purdue. They're mad at IU. They're mad at their coach. They're trying to get Woodson out of there. Like they're not, normally you have IU fans like flooding every comment. Craig's getting harassed about every little thing, but you've beaten them into submission about their bad Braden Smith takes. And like, so now there's no fight anymore. You're like trying to like pick them up. Like, come on, throw a punch. This is pathetic. But then as I say that, I don't want to say that right now because as I say that, then Joe's, meter of worrisome, the 3, if it creeps back in and we get what we're, barking for, that's why like when you were like, I am -5, that worries me as a superstitious fan. Like then they come in and steal one and now I'm be careful what you wish for, as they say.
It can happen. Like, I mean, we don't need to relive the IU wins, but like random things can happen and it can go a certain way. Now if Purdue and IU wasn't a rivalry and we were just looking matchup based, like the worry level meter goes down a bit, but I don't know, I'm excited. Like I don't, even just the hype around the game still, even if IU isn't as great as some other times in the rivalry, still just super excited for the game.
Yeah, Walter Evans in the chat says IU fans want Purdue to win so they can get rid of Woodson. And that's true. Like the one person that Woodson has coached well against, or at least halfway decent, has been Matt Painter. Like he honestly for a while had his number. Now, when you have Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis, NBA level, because, I think Joe can explain this better than I can, but he's trying to run a more NBA style of play. But when you don't have NBA players to try to implement that NBA style of play, you kind of get what you're getting this year. And so it's interesting to see how this is all shaking out. And it certainly seems like a change may be coming here soon for IU and their head coach, right, Craig?
I mean, very well could. There's only so long that IU is going to live with underperforming teams from any coach. We've seen them pull the trigger again and again. There's always somebody to bail them out from the financial side of things to help them get out of contracts and hire somebody new. And actually saw some Purdue fans really pushing students, trying to push to like get the paint crew to cheer for Woodson when he was announced, because they thought that would be the funniest thing for IU fans, is if Purdue was all cheering for him instead of booing him like they normally would, since they're already booing him.
But and you're talking about Woodson?
Yeah. You're
right. Well, that backfired for Michigan fans who were rooting for Ryan Day and like, extend Ryan Day, he tongue in cheek because he's been such a bad coach for Ohio State and now Ohio State's national champion. So, as somebody said in the chat, don't count your chickens because and be careful what you wish for, because things can flip on their head. Now, IU having any kind of resurgence the way Ohio State did, I think we don't have to hold our breath on that one. But it is interesting, and I know you guys did a preview show, so we don't have to spoil everything you guys broke down in that one. For any of you that haven't had an opportunity, make sure you go check out their preview show with Brian Tonsoni from Assembly Call, a good friend of ours and a good friend of the program, from earlier this week. But it is going to be interesting to see, what IU can do to try to muddy up this game. I mean, typically, the last few years, they try to play the most aggressive style of defense to force turnovers, slow Purdue from getting into their sets, and then hope that Purdue has an off night shooting. I mean, Joe, that kind of feels like the recipe they're going to have to go to once again here tomorrow night.
Yeah, just gotta Right. They do have two talented bigs. Regardless of what you think of them, they are two talented bigs. They are two big bodies, especially Ballo. Like if they can get the game going from the inside with him, I agree. We talked about with Tonsoni, like Miles Rice has to play well for IU to have a chance, I think. But yeah, knock down some shots. You also just kind of have to hope Purdue misses some, right? You look at the Ohio State game, Purdue just missed shots. Like it simply was that. I don't think Ohio State played particularly good defense that day. Purdue just missed shots, and that's kind of where it gets to the anything can happen, right? Is hey, what if Purdue starts struggling from three and IU start like I still have faith in Purdue, but that feels like pretty much the recipe that IU has to try to go with.
Yeah. So I don't know where else you guys want to take this. I know we got a big night tomorrow night. I'm going to try to get to the arena early to take it in, take all the vibes in, but I'm definitely excited to get there. Be a game number 2. And I've held a standard now that Purdue wins by 20 plus when I go to games. So
yeah.
You
want to bring my
and I'll be making my.
I have it right here. It's right around this goddamn corner. But if I bring it in here, then I'm gonna forget it in here. See? You gotta bring it.
I'm shocked
up.
we can still hear him.
Here's the damn shirt right here in this bag.
I believe you. And just
okay. Now if I leave it in this office, to give people the visual that I still have it. Look at it, it's popping out of here. Get that thing back in there. But I'm excited for you to receive this. And any of you can get Boilers in the Stands merch. If you go to our in our description on YouTube, we have the link. Or if you Google Brags in the Stands in Teespring, it'll pull up our store and you can get hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, stickers. I think they even have coffee mugs. So they got it all.
Pint glasses.
That's right. I got a pint glass. So
this will be the first time for me this year. I did get credentials approved to go to Assembly Hall and cover the team at the IU game. That'll be my first time there since I was a wee little lad back in the day.
Well, and it was interesting when Caleb was talking about his favorite stadiums to play at, and he said the RAC. Obviously, that's given Purdue some problems. There's been some crazy finishes there. Breslin Center is certainly impressive when you go there and you see all the banners. As IU likes to tout their banners, go check out the banners in Breslin Center. It's pretty impressive, and that can be pretty intimidating when you're warming up and you realize what their program is all about. But people, it may not be a popular thing, but I've gone to a handful of Purdue games at IU the last few years. And now while Mackey is consistently one of the best basketball environments in the country, if not the best, because they show up for every single game and they can get just as loud on Friday night against Michigan and almost set the decibel record in a game like that. And they'll show up just as much against IU. But when Purdue comes to IU, that place is an absolute madhouse. I've told people the environment there for Purdue games, because they are so obsessed now with beating Purdue because that's all they've got, that they really dial it up to the nines, and then it's up to Purdue to kind of quiet them down by halftime. And if it's a game by halftime, then the second half is absolutely insane every single time. So I do give them credit, because it like just from the standpoint of, this is all about Boilers in the Stands. This is a Fans in the Stands network that we do here, and I love those kind of environments. So I'll give them their credit for at least the Purdue games when they show up there. That stadium is absolutely nuts to be in, and the fans are just on top of the floor. With Purdue and Mackey, the way they kind of have the bowl created, the fans are certainly loud and intense, but like at Assembly, it's almost like the fans are in the when they're calling the lineups as the players are introduced, like the fans are in it. Like it's nuts. It is absolutely nuts there. So if you've never been to a Purdue game at IU, you should definitely go, because it's a lot of fun. But I'm excited for tomorrow night. There's no question about it. And it is a blackout tomorrow, so make sure you're wearing black. You getting tired there, old man? You getting tired there, old man?
I'm sorry, I had to yawn, man. It's
getting tired.
I'm a little bit tired. I'm I'm an old man, but I still know the young people music, Greg. So
I know that
take-
one, man.
that.
That was tough, man.
He said it so nonchalantly too, like,
then
actually, I think my parents listen to them.
Yeah, and then
to
he
you.
did it again. Then he tried to clean it up. He's like, no. I mean, it's like a parents thing. Like, dude, what in the hell? It's just crazy. You know that, and every time you set these kids up for this LeBron crap, I just at this point, like, you're trying to make me enemies of these guys, and I'm not gonna fall for the bait. Casey's even in the chat now. Casey, I don't know how old Casey is, but he has less of an excuse, I feel like, as somebody that, you know, analyzes the game. And when you say Team LeBron, and maybe Casey, you're just trolling me. I don't know, but you know,
I think you're
for
just
me,
wrong, Greg, and you
no,
need
I'm
to
not wrong.
realize that you're wrong.
No, it's not wrong. I mean, it's a worn out argument for one, and two, if any, like, oh, you guys, I'm not even gonna listen to it because Craig, you know better. So I'm not even gonna, engage in your trolling. I've learned now from your football comments that this is what you do. You get me fired up, and I don't have time for it. Michael Jordan would eat LeBron's lunch, and you know it. Joe knows it. That's why Joe never fights this argument, but you do.
I think I've said
He just doesn't want to pile on.
My take on this is, like, if you want to call it like the GOAT, like, I'm cool with that being MJ. I got no issue. If I am picking, like, if I am starting a basketball team and I have the first overall pick of the history, I am picking LeBron.
Oh my God. I just can't. God dang it, man. I can't. I can't.
Nebraska's beating Illinois, and Illinois is shooting like 7% from three. Like, we need to get to this game, Greg.
All right, we'll get to the game.
I got to go rile up some Illinois fans on Twitter.
I knew this was coming with Illinois. I have a good friend at CHGO Sports. His name's Cody Domendo. He has his own podcast where he covers Illinois. And, like, in the first half of the season, I was like, hey, man, congrats on that Big Ten championship. There's literally nothing anyone in the Big Ten can do to stop you guys from winning. And it just, every time he's like, get away from me, Greg. Get away from me. So, I don't know. I know they have one of their, main players is injured. I don't know if he's back tonight or not.
Visic.
Yeah, so, it is what it is. But, so, all right, that wraps things up. I know we kind of winded down here with some silly talk here, but we appreciate everybody tuning in, hanging out. Hit that like button one more time for Caleb Furst. Thank you to Caleb for joining the show and opening the door to maybe some future interviews here in the future, but we'll leave them alone and let them fight for a Big Ten championship and beyond here before we start barking up that tree again. But the Midwestern Goodbye is in play here. Thank you to Joe and Craig, as always, for your hard work. Thank you to everybody in the chat, even Casey. We appreciate all your guys' support. So once again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will see you tomorrow night, Purdue versus IU at Mackey Arena, and we will be live as fast as we possibly can from Mackey Arena once the game concludes and everybody kind of clears out. So we'll see you then. Appreciate you guys, and always boiler up.